Hello everyone, welcome back to Let's Play Great Ace Attorney 2, Resolve. This is V-Diffuser. In our last episode, we got some more witnesses, and something's up here. As the judge says, it's imperative we clear up the issue of this phantom balloon, I feel. Witness, you will give supplementary testimony about the balloons you are operating at the exhibition. Ah, grazie, my lord. Mr. Loon's balloons. As I said, Balthazar Loon is no liar. Every balloon I had in the sky landed safely. All three of my balloons were carrying passengers. They fell to the ground in an explosion. What a catastrophe. But you can't get away from the fact that a bit of the cloth was found at the scene, can you? The coppers at the yard reckoned it was probably some debris thrown from the explosion on the stage. This stupid ragazzo is mistaken. My balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway. So, the green one wasn't yours. So your assertion is that the balloon this child saw was not one belonging to you. Si, exactamente. If he even saw a balloon in the first place. I do not like the sound of it. It is very bad for business. I have a good mind to sue the land of Bohemia. You attack us, we will bite back. It will be war. All out war. I'm hoping you're thinking war and not the other one. There's way too much of that around. I'm still very rich. What happened to all-out war? And definitely not all-out war. Mr. Loon doesn't appear to be lying. But that doesn't change the fact that the testimony and evidence are contradictory here. If the defense is unable to find fault with the witnesses' statements, the court must consider them the truth. Think long and hard on that, my learned friend. The situation has clearly changed now. I have to get to the bottom of what happened here, no matter what it takes. Counsel, you may now cross-examine the witnesses. Alright. All three, yes. Alright. You mean the color is wrong. Si, senor. I do not have any green balloons in my warehouse. And yet, a piece of green cloth was found at the scene, and it's unmistakably from a balloon. Well, I do not know how that can be. For the sake of argument, let's say that a green balloon did explode above the stage. You couldn't therefore conclude it happened on the day in question. Why not? There have been recreational balloon flights over Hyde Park operating from before the Great Exhibition. One could have exploded on some earlier date. Unfortunate, as I'm sure you agree. You believe it may have been from some earlier balloon accident that predates the explosion. Si, exactamente. As the senor says, it's not from one of my balloons. Clearly this little ragazzo from Bohemia is mistaken about what he saw. Somebody does not like that.
Excuse me.
Is something wrong, Master Gotts? It's Master Wilhelm Gottswitch Sigismund Ornstein. You will get it right, or I will send Smo after you. It was on the tip of my tongue. Yeah, something is very wrong. I still know what I saw. There was a green balloon there. I swear it. I swear all over Bohemia. You can speak as much bad language as you like, but it changes nothing. If you do not have evidence, ragazzo, I must tell your parents to punish you, eh? Perhaps we'll let the judge decide when it comes to punishments. Evidence? What is this evidence? To give a simple example, young man, a photograph, for example. Some tangible proof of what you claim. Well, why didn't you say so sooner? I have the photograph here. Good gracious! What? I had not been up in a balloon for a little while, so I was very excited. So I took lots and lots of photographs of the Crystal Tower, of the Bohemian exhibit, of the streets of London and the hot eel cellar, the balloon, and the instantaneous kinesis experiment. Did you take a picture of that? Yeah, one picture. Really? You did take one? But all I wanted was to ride in a balloon. I was not interested in boring experiments. Never mind that. Can you show us that photograph? Of course, and then you will see that I am not lying. That I really did see a green balloon. It's in black and white. Well, I see you're all too shocked to speak. Yes, I think shocked is indeed the word, young man. Yeah, perhaps you cannot see that it was a green balloon from this photograph, but... That's not my fault! It is the fault of the stupid person who made the camera! Ah! That is one very bohemian-sounding cry. Very well, the court will accept this photograph as evidence. It's not my fault. It's the fault of the person who made the camera. Well, never mind. I'm sure you have plenty of wonderful sepia memories to take home with you. In any case, when exactly did you take that photograph? Well, it was on the day of the big explosion. You don't say. When I pressed the shutter release, there was this very loud bang, and a hot wind rushed over my face. That means this photograph was taken a split second before the explosion occurred. Well, if you ask me, this black and white photograph changes nothing. I could not give a flying fig. Lovely language you've picked up. Alright, court record. Let's see if we can identify anything here. Nah, nothing comes up. Mr. Loon's testimony just doesn't quite add up. The young bohemian boy claims to have seen another fourth balloon, and Mr. Loon vehemently denies the possibility. And it's hard to imagine the man in charge could be mistaken about the number that were in the air. Still, this inconsistency must tell us something, I'm sure. Okay. Let's see if this works. It probably doesn't, considering my track record. Okay, volume's down, we did good. Unfortunately, the photograph Mr. Gotts took can't tell us the color of the balloon. But it can tell us something else. Something crucially important. What? It shows that the pictured balloon wasn't carrying any passengers. Ah, my goodness, you're right. But surely all the balloons would have been carrying passengers. There would be no sense otherwise. See, they are for pleasure, for seeing the view. My balloons only fly with passengers. Which tells us that the pictured balloon isn't one of them. So when the incident occurred that day, there was a fourth balloon in the sky above the experimentation stage. The mysterious green balloon. I know nothing. Niente. I cannot only tell you one thing. This balloon was not carrying passengers. It was not one of mine. Careful with that hat. There are illegal tradesmen everywhere you care to look. Clearly, one such entrepreneur decided to capitalize on the opportunity presented by the Great Exhibition, and managed to operate balloon flights on Mr. Loon's patch without him realizing. See the competition, trying to steal my profits. I did not notice because of the experimento that went wrong on that stage. This fourth balloon exploded at the very same moment Mr. Asman was beamed from the stage below. Right. So them scraps have fell to the ground after, and left them scorch marks. They didn't come from the stage at all. It was bits of the balloon raining down. Because no one was in on it, they didn't get no attention. A mysterious fourth balloon carrying no passengers, silently floating above the experimentation stage. Objection! This photograph shows us nothing more. A stray balloon carrying no one and operated by some rogue trader. Clearly it has nothing to do with the case. Their relevance does elude me, I must say. The court has seen sufficient evidence and heard ample testimony already. The prosecution calls for this trial to be concluded. Really? Have we really got to the truth yet? No. I can't let this opportunity slip away. The jurors' minds are made up, and not in our favor. There's more. There is more. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, wait. Please don't give your decisions yet. The photograph from Master Gotts may very well be hiding one more vital clue. What's that? A vital clue? You look like Waluigi now. We're well past the point of mere possibilities. It's time for definitives now, so tell us the court. What exactly does this alleged clue prove? The cause of the explosion. We can reasonably assume the picture balloon was destroyed in the searing heat of the explosion. Yeah, that's right, yeah, it was not my fault. Evidently, because the birdcage from the kinesis machine materialized in the sky where it had been flying. And the balloon, being filled with flammable hydrogen, instantly and explosively ignited. No, that's not what happened. What? Counsel for the defense, you will highlight the location of the alleged clue in the photograph from the court. Oh, of course, my lord. If you look closely, it's plain enough to see, and what's shown is linked to another piece of evidence we have. In a way, it leads to an unbelievable conclusion. Oh, we have a death ray up here. The timing of this photograph can only be described as miraculous. If you look, you'll notice there's a bright white line that appears to point directly at the balloon. Most likely a ray of light caught incidentally on the film. I'm afraid I can see nothing of the sort. If you look with a magnifying glass, my lord, it becomes clear what the nature of this bright line really is. Goodness, what is that? Undeniably, some flash of light, yes. Oh golly, do you think it might be lightning? No. It couldn't have been a finer day. I believe we may be looking at fire. A bolt of fire heading straight for the balloon. Like an arrow. It is an arrow. Indeed, even in my aging eyes, it would appear to be a flame of some kind. My word! Are you suggesting this flame struck the hydrogen gas that filled the balloon?
Objection!
That's absurd. The balloon would have been 60 feet above the ground at the time. No flame could possibly have reached such a height.
Objection!
Actually, it's my opinion that a particular piece of evidence found at the scene reveals exactly how this happened. What evidence? If such evidence exists, Counsel, then for goodness sake, present it, man! What evidence explains this mysterious streak of flame that appears to be headed for the balloon? Alrighty, what have we got here? Blah, 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 blah.
Take that!
This was found hidden at the foot of a small ornamental tree near the scene. Good lord! Is that a crossbow? An arrow dipped in oil and set alight could have been shot from this weapon, sending a flaming arrow straight to the hydrogen-filled balloon. Are you suggesting that crossbow was used to deliberately? Blimey, you're right! That streak of light in the photo looks like an arrow, doesn't it? Then, the explosion of the balloon, it was very likely the result of a flaming arrow from this crossbow igniting the hydrogen in it. No! Order! Order! Council has... This is an extraordinary supposition. If the aim was to cause the balloon to explode, the shooter could have used a gun, of course. However, there's an obvious reason why that would have been out of the question. The noise of the discharge. Of course! That's right. By using a crossbow, the projectile would be fired at the balloon silently. Well, yeah, if someone had shot a gun off on the exhibition grounds, it would have caused a real panic. But with the big explosion, it is a very big panic anyway, no? I don't like this. I should be pleased to have found a plausible new explanation for all this, but something feels wrong.
Objection!
Do you understand the implications of what you're saying, my Nipponese friend? If a flaming arrow did indeed hit the balloon, then obviously it would have exploded. And if the birdcage appeared from the cloud of smoke that ensued... What do you mean? What are you really saying here? I don't get it. Was the birdcage beamed up into the sky after all? Or what? My goodness me! Ah, now I understand. That's what that seeking feeling is about. I think there's a good chance that the birdcage was actually concealed inside the balloon all along. What? Did I just hear that correctly, Counsel? There's no going back now. The horse has bolted. Let's assume, as I said, that the birdcage was hidden inside the green balloon from the start. On stage, when the experiment was started, the birdcage and the instantaneous kinesis machine disappeared in a cloud of smoke. At that moment, the flaming arrow was fired from the ground, causing the green balloon to explode and drawing the attention of the spectators to the sky above their head. From amid the smoke, the hidden birdcage then appeared, to fall down and crash into the crystal tower. I think you'll all agree it's entirely plausible that what I've just described is the real truth behind the miraculous experiment carried out that day. This is... Good grief!
Objection!
This is ludicrous. What you've described is no science experiment. It's child's play. A contemptible display of stage magic. Both Mr. Sholmes and Iris said that the experiment was a scientific impossibility. In which case, this is the only way to explain what happened that day. And in any case, the victim's body was found in the birdcage in the Crystal Tower. If the instantaneous kinesis didn't take place, how do you explain that? If I may put in a word as a man of magic myself, such apparent discrepancies can easily be explained by some simple deception. Juror number 3? All that would be needed is a doppelganger, someone who looked very similar to the victim, Mr. Asman. And having this other man appear on stage to front the show. It is a body double. Yes, of course. So in fact, Mr. Asman must have been inside the birdcage that was concealed inside the balloon right from the start.
Objection.
That balloon would have been filled with hydrogen. Something hidden inside it would have been scattered to the four winds when it exploded. No one would have embarked on such a risky venture. Not necessarily. The explosive force of the balloon gas would very much depend on the mixture ratio. Juror number 4. Flying balloons are rarely filled with pure hydrogen, but a mixture of other gases such as helium as well. Helium on its own doesn't explode, but by controlling the gas mixture ratio, the explosive force can be altered. It's the reason the Hindenburg happened. The mixture ratio? Obviously, the victim's body would have suffered some burns. That would be unavoidable. But not to an extent as to render the whole obscene charade impossible. So everything that happened can be explained logically and scientifically. The explosion that engulfed the stage at the start of the experiment was no accident. It was all a part of an elaborate deception to make it appear that instantaneous kinesis had occurred. Well, goodness me. And if we accept that this is what happens, it means that the victim, Mr. Asman, was never present on the public experimentation stage to begin with. In short, he couldn't have been killed by the defendant who was in stage in full view the entire time. This will be very hard for the prosecution to counter. Lord Van Zieks can't credibly maintain that Professor Hairbrain is a suspect now. Hold it! Mr. Naruhodo, I appreciate your efforts. Thank you. Professor, but you can stop now. Just keep your mouth shut, please. Sorry. What's all this about, Mr. Hairbrain? Albert Hairbrain, hereby confess. That was me. Who stabbed Mr. Odie Esmond? Yes, I was me, with my faithful friend and partner. Are you trying... What? What are you doing? You're sabotaging our case. Defendant, explain this sudden confession.
Objection.
Professor Hairbrain, what are you talking about? It's what I've said all along. I must protect my hypothesis and my precious machine. You stand there and claim it was a trick. It's an elaborate prank, but where's your proof? No, you'd have to examine the machine if you wanted to prove it, but then it would be all over. My beautiful hypothesis would be laid bare. I mean, the indignity of it! It's clear you drew the plans for the experiment, but you didn't actually build it. It's quite conceivable you were duped, Professor. If you let me, I can prove... Barak! Yes? I'll cooperate. I'll do whatever you say. I swear it. Please. Ensure the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act is adhered to and protect my creation. I need a drink. You're right. Eesh. Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice at this critical juncture. Here's to my learned Japanese friend. What? And his upcoming attempt to clarify the defense's position in the light of the accused's confession. Do you intend to formally assert that the experiment was nothing more than a conjuring trick? Because the moment you do, the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act that protects the professor's invention will cease to apply. The prosecution will then demand a rigorous examination of the machinery involved in order to establish the truth. We have to. However, if you acknowledge that the machine is genuine and instrumental in the victim's murder, any chance of investigating will be crushed, and the confidentiality of the professor's hypothesis preserved. Well, counsel, what is the defense's official position on the matter? Sorry, big guy. We have to examine. What Professor Hairbrain, my client, actually asked of me was to prove that the explosion on stage was an accident and protect the secrecy of his hypothesis. But there's no way to do that without implying the professor's guilt. Do I protect my client's life by asserting his innocence? Or do I uphold my client's request, but see him condemned? Either way, I can't avoid betraying his trust. You've been silent long enough. Isn't talking your trade, my learned friend? Or has all knowledge of English escaped your confused Nipponese mind? Hey, them's fighting words. Ugh. Mr. Naruhodo! There's no escape here. I have to make a choice. But it's an impossible one. I have to give up on something. But what? The defense asserts that the defendant's instantaneous kinesis machine was in fact a conjuring trick. You got duped, Hairbrain. Ugh. No, I can't say it. My client placed his faith in me. I can't just let him down. What must I give up on is not the question you have to ask yourself here. It's what can I protect? Hello again, Mr. Naruhodo. It's been far too long. How'd you get here? Susato-san! But what are you? Hey, Ow! In the middle of court? My first Susato takedown in 6 months. There'll be time to talk later, Mr. Naruhodo. For now, we must concentrate on the task at hand. Which is working out what nut I have to give up on, but what can I protect? Professor Hairbrain. Yes? Yesterday you told me that science is the pursuit of truth. Well, my job is to pursue the truth too. Yes, of course. And personally, I believe that you didn't stab Mr. Asman. I think you've come to realize something yourself too, haven't you? That your experiment and the machine you built with the victim are questionable. The truth behind that is what we must pursue now. Ah! My leg! So, you finally opened your eyes. What? And as for you, Albert, you can't ignore this any longer. Having heard my learned friend's assertion, don't you have something to say? The Rock! Lord Van Zeeks. Gosh, I've never heard him speak that way before. In truth, there is one thing, something I've remembered that's of relevance. What? On the day it happened, just before I began the experiment, I saw a man near the stage. A man holding that crossbow. I beg your pardon. Professor! Did the man have any distinguishing features? What did he look like? Taller than me, and thinner than me, with straight hair, straighter and whiter than mine. Let me see. One less lens than me too. A monocle. Rather stylish black monocle. But one thing in particular with help to positively identify the man you see, I know him very well. After all, He's the engineer who built my invention. What? He built the machine? That's right. Mr. Asman introduced him to me a year ago. He's a man by the name of Enoch Drubber. Enoch! Drubber! Does this name mean something? Members of the jury seem flustered. Not a name any scientist wishes to hear. That man's an abomination. Not a name any conjurer wishes to hear either. Who on earth is he? I'm afraid this isn't the first tale of his nature that I've heard in scientific circles in connection with that name. There's talk of other flamboyant experiments that turn out to be nothing but staged trickery in the end. Obviously, the rascal's after the government's research grant money. When magicians are in need of money, I have heard of them resorting to these underhand tactics. Some acquaintances of mine with experience of such things have mentioned Enoch Drubber's name before. The man is both an engineer and a magician. Yes, we're dealing with an unparalleled confidence trickster here. That's Enoch Drubber for you. Oh boy. I told you were getting scammed. So it's true then. My invention, my great machine, it was just a grand illusion. Considering what we've just heard about Mr. Drubber's character, I'm sorry to say that sounds increasingly likely. Even though no one else believed it, I wanted to. I wanted to believe that machine would function exactly as my hypothesis predicted. Which is why you were so opposed to it being investigated, I presume. I knew if the machine was examined in detail, its construction would give away my hypothesis. Obviously, I didn't want that to happen, but at the same time, I knew if it was found to be nothing more than a trick, than a work of deception, then everything I'd worked towards, all my research, all my dreams, my whole life would be over. I was terrified at that prospect. So you really had no idea then, did you? About the true nature of the machine that was built, and the true nature of Mr. Drubber. I never questioned anything. I didn't want to question it. It's entirely possible that Mr. Asman and Mr. Drubber were working together to use you as a means to fraudulently acquiring the research grant money. When I announced my invention to the crowds that day, it was the finest moment of my career. I pulled all the levers and turned all the dials in exactly the way Mr. Drubber had described. When the smoke suddenly started billowing out, I panicked. I didn't know what was happening. But I really don't know how the whole illusion was made to work. I don't know anything anymore. Let me confirm one final point with you, Professor. Do you now consent to the prosecution submitting the necessary paperwork to release your invention from the protection afforded by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act? Yes, please go ahead. I'm very sorry. It would appear that we shall have to suspend proceedings for the remainder of the day now. Lord Van Zeeks! My lord, the court has newly been made aware of another party whose involvement in this matter is critical. Yes, Mr. Drubber. Gather information about the man. If possible, I should like him served with a subpoena. With pleasure, my lord. Now, counsel for the defense. Yes, my lord. When we reconvene, I shall be looking for one thing, and one thing alone from you. Evidence that the defendant is innocent of the crime for which he presently stands accused. I understand. Good. In that case, this court is adjourned until tomorrow morning. Alrighty, with that, we're done with this day 1 trial. It's time... Oh, really? We still got more then, huh? Sorry, big guy. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. You were right. I tricked you. You trusted me. I dragged you into my mess. How did it ever come to this? I'm so sorry. Did you really have no idea, Professor? About what Mr. Drever was really up to, I mean? About what he was really constructing? Naturally! That machine was the embodiment of my hypothesis, of all my hopes and dreams. I had complete faith in it. Alright, in that case, I won't say any more. Now sadly, the murder accusation against you still stands. So we must do as much investigation as we can before the trial resumes tomorrow. Well, thank you for doing so much for me. I'm so sorry for arriving late this morning, Mr. Naruhodo. Arriving late? Didn't you receive my postcard? I wanted to let you know when I'd arrive. Postcard? What postcard? I had it from you, Bruno, so it'd be a surprise. Well, did it work? I was surprised all right, especially when she threw me to the ground. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I was just so happy to see you again that it sort of slipped out. Maybe we could stick to more traditional displays of emotion in future. Susie's train was late into London Victoria this morning, you see. Well, we made the coachman really whip the horses hard so she didn't miss the whole trial. I was watching from the gallery for a while, but in the end, I'm afraid I couldn't contain myself. Well, I'm glad you didn't. Oh, having you at my side in court gives me the strength I need to win. So I'm delighted to see you back in London. Shut up and hug. Oh, you're too kind, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm delighted to be here. I hope I can continue to be of service to you. Of course. So, what's brought you back? Did Professor Mikotoba not protest? Let's save all that conversation for when we're back at home, shall we? You know, I've made one of my most special blends ever for this special occasion. Oh, Iris, how wonderful. I can't wait. Alright. Now I believe Susato-san was back in London. It's hard to describe how happy that made me feel at the time, but despite my elation, our tale was about to take yet another extraordinary turn. To be continued, right. We're saving, and we will continue in the next part. See you guys next time.